Hey, what's up everyone? I just finished upgrading our third Q1, this blue one here on the end. Not only the looks of it, I painted it fully with that metallic blue, did some other things to it, but also the performance of it. I brought the performance up to where our other two Q1s are, this green in the middle, which is my son's, and then the purple one on the end. So basically by performance increase, what I mean is I have replaced the stock 48 volt batteries in all three of these with 52 volt batteries, so there's 4 more volts nominal on the battery. So that's one thing I did. Each one has a 52 volt nominal, 28 amp hour battery, so it's a little bit more capacity than the stock Q1 battery as well. More voltage and a little more capacity. So that's one thing I did to all these. Also, the second thing is I replaced the Kiwa controllers in all these with an aftermarket controller that works really well with these things once you do a slight modification to them. They run insanely good. The other thing I love about these controllers is the electronic braking. When you hit your brakes, the motor braking is phenomenally good on these, where it's going to save you a lot of wear on your brake pads. My next video, I'm going to be doing a little bit of riding on each one of these to show you the performance a little bit. They are completely different scooters. It surprises me every time I ride one of these how well they run, how quick they are. This is something you could do to a Q1. If you have a Q1, you're not happy with the performance, you could do this, from what I can tell right now, for about $350. Basically, there's a battery on Amazon you could buy. It's got a little less capacity, but it should get you 20 miles anyway. So if you don't really need to go more than 20 miles and you want to up your voltage to 52 volts to get some more power and speed, you could do that for, I think, around 280 bucks. And the controller I'm talking about is about 70 bucks right now. So for about 350 bucks, you could convert a stock Q1 to run off of this controller and a 52 volt battery. Okay, so let me show you the controller first. This is it. It's kind of, some people say orange, I think it's like a kind of a darker gold color. Regardless, this is the controller. You can get this on Amazon right now for about 70 bucks, or you can get it for about 40 bucks if you want to get it from China and wait 3 or 4 weeks maybe to get it. Okay, so you can see here the difference between this one and the old Kiwa controller. This one's much bigger, of course. There's 12 power MOSFETs in this one, where there's only 6 in this one. So this has the ability to put out more power, more current to the motor. So this is a much better controller, and there's a modification you can make to the current sensing circuit in there that just totally unlocks it and gives it this great acceleration and performance. So due to lack of space inside the chassis Q1, and this controller being more than 2 times bigger than the original controller, I had to come up with some ways to actually make this work. First one I did is this purple one here, did my son's next, and did the blue one last. Before I even found this controller, I'd already purchased a 52 volt battery. So I'd already had that battery installed in the scooter, so when I started messing around with different controllers, I needed to find something I could make work in here. This controller, with the 52 volt battery I have, fits in here enough where I could cut a hole in the back of the chassis. And you can see here the controller is sticking out a couple inches out of the back of the chassis there, but I got plenty of clearance for my suspension to move. So that worked out good with these two, with the batteries I have in them, the size of the batteries. This third one here, the battery is actually bigger. It's the same 52 volt, 28 amp hour, but the shape is different. It's much longer. So I'm going to take the lids off here and show you. But basically with the battery I have in here, I didn't have the option of mounting it. So, putting a hole in the back and having it come out the back a couple inches like I did on these two, which makes it a lot cleaner. So again, you can see that down there I've got some stickers on the back, but that's the controller sticking out the back there. And on my other one here, it's kind of hard to see on my handle, this purple is the back cap of the controller on that one. So I didn't have the room to do it in this one, so what I did with this one is actually set it up on end, cut a hole in the deck and stick it up to the deck there. You lose about 4 inches of deck space, but it's certainly worth it to me to get the performance I'm getting out of this thing. So let's take a look at this one real quick. I basically had some foam or rubber sticking in spaces to hold this in nice and tight so it wasn't going anywhere. I'm not worried about water or anything like that. I don't ride when it's raining, and it rarely rains here anyway. Just lift this off like this. gasket off, padding. Okay, so you can see the battery in this one goes all the way from the front of the chassis back this far, so I only had about that much room in there, which would have been fine for the original Kiwa controller, but certainly not for this one. And because there's only that much room, if I put a hole in the back of the chassis like I did on those two, to run the controller out through the back of the chassis like that, because this battery comes so far up, this controller was stuck out too far and would have interfered with my suspension when going over bumps and stuff. So I had no choice but to stand this one up like this, and it worked out pretty well. I did paint it, as you can see, I painted it black. So take a look at this green one now. And you can see the battery in this one is wider than the battery in that one, but it's not as long. So the dimensions are different. They're both 52 volt, 28 amp hour, 52 volt, 28 amp hour. So they're identical as far as power and capacity go. When I had this one made, I gave them the dimensions I wanted it to be able to fit in here. And basically I wanted to get as much amp hour capacity as I could. I ordered this one probably about 6 months after ordering that one. I bought these a company in China, had them custom made for me. But I placed the order to get that exact same battery with the same dimensions, and this is what I got. So at the time, it's like, this isn't going to work for me, because I want to put the controller through the back there. I didn't want to have it sticking up through the back there. So basically what happened is I ended up getting this battery for free, and they resent me another one of that size, which is this battery you're looking at here. My purple scooter there is the exact same setup as this, exact same battery, exact same size. So it's identical setup to this green one here, so I'm not going to pull the lid on that one. So to compare, here's the original Kiwa 48 volt battery, 26 amp hour. I'm holding in my hand here. So I got the ends matching, and you can see on this end, the Kiwa battery, original stock battery, comes out a couple inches longer than my 52 volt battery there. That's just long enough where it would make it not possible to do the controller sticking out the back like this. An extra 2 inches interferes with the suspension. If we compare it to the 52 volt battery in the blue scooter here, you can see the one that they made with the wrong dimensions. Line up there, you can see that my 52 volt battery on this side is actually bigger lengthwise than the stock Kiwa 48 volt battery. So at the time I couldn't put the controller through the back using that battery, which is why I went back to them and said, hey, you built it with the wrong dimensions. We went back and forth a little bit. I actually bought another battery for my Q-Power 60 volt battery, so that helped. And they finally just gave me this battery, said just keep it because they didn't want to pay to send it back to China. Okay, if we take a look online here on Amazon, there's a 52 volt, 22 amp hour lithium battery currently. Don't get confused by the milliamp hours down there where it says 22,000 milliamp hours. To convert from milliamp hours to amp hours, you just multiply by 1,000. Divide by 1,000. So that 22,000 becomes 22.0 amp hours. So the price on it right now, make sure it says 22 amp hours because it got smaller ones. You don't want any smaller than 22 amp hour. Currently $278. I believe that includes shipping. So that's a pretty good price for a 22 amp hour battery, 52 volt actually. It's not as much capacity as I have in here. Again, I have 28 amp hour capacity in here, so I got 6 amp hour more capacity. I can expect maybe about 6 to 10 more miles off this battery than you would get off this one. But this is being a 22 amp hour, you can probably get 20 miles on it going pretty much, I don't know if you're going full throttle. If you're going full throttle, maybe you get less than 20 miles. If you're going 20 miles constantly at full throttle. If you need to go more than that, the slower you go, the more miles you're going to get out of it. So I'm just going based on a 28 amp hour battery, 52 volt, and this scooter here, fully charged, I can get about 26 miles riding pretty hard, pretty fast on it. So 22 amp hour, you're not going to get that much, so I'm just estimating around 20 miles. But for me, most of my rides are under 10 miles, so something like that wouldn't bother me at all. And again, the speed, the performance you're going to get is going to be amazing. So again, to me, that would be a good trade-off if I don't need to go, more than, say, 15, 20 miles on any given ride. Okay, so just let's take a look at this real quick here. 52 volt, 22 amp hour. I'm looking for specs here. Nominal voltage is 52 volts. Yes, we know that. 14 series, 5 parallel. Yep, that's good. Okay, here's what we're looking for. BMS 30 amp max continuous and 60 plus or minus 10 amp max peak current. That's good. 30 amp continuous, you must have at least that for these. I believe I'm probably pushing 28 amps, 29 amps maybe. I'm getting close to that 30 amp mark with this controller. So the battery's got to be able to handle that, of course. So 30 amp continuous, that's good. 60 amp max peak. That means if you're doing it for a short period of time, like throttling really hard or something, it can go up to that max amount. It just won't sustain it over long periods of time. So that's a good match there. 30 amp continuous, that's the main thing. 60 amp peak is good for this single motor. If you had a dual motor scooter, you need more than that. But that's good for this scooter, single motor, 800 watt motor. So there you go, that works good. The dimensions that they list right there. So the length is 290 millimeters. Now let's just look at the original Kiwa battery I've got right here. This is millimeters. The one is 10 millimeters, so each line is 1 millimeter, so that's 10, 20, 30, etc. And the original Kiwa battery, that is 335 millimeters. I did the other measurement. So the Kiwa battery, original 48 volt battery, is 335 millimeters by 110 by 90. Whereas this 52 volt one on Amazon, 290 by 102 by 70. So you can see it's smaller in every dimension than this original Kiwa battery, therefore it will easily fit in the chassis. Now going beyond that, it could be a tight fit, but you might be able to get this battery with these dimensions, 290, 102, 70, plus this gold controller. You might be able to fit them both into the chassis without having to stick it up to the top or through the back. And the reason why I say that is it's actually a little bit shorter than my 52 volt battery here by about that much. So if we take an overall measurement, we've got for the length, and that's the key one, the length. We've got 290 millimeters. Here's the controller, and now I'm not going to count the wires really, I'm just counting the length of the body of the controller. And this did have brackets on it one time that I cut off, so you might would maybe need to do that, but let's line up that end, and we've got about 150, just to be safe, I'd say 160 millimeters. So 160 millimeters for the controller, 290 for that battery on Amazon. So 290 millimeters plus 160 millimeters gives you 450 millimeters total if that battery and that controller were end to end. Now let's take a look at the room we have in the chassis here. And from the front of the chassis to the rear, we've got 445 millimeters. It's pretty close. It'd be a tight fit. I bet I could do it because the battery from Amazon isn't as tall as this one. So you're going to have about this much room from the top to chassis where you can push wiring up underneath between the lid and the battery as well. Like I said, it'd be a tight fit, but I bet I could do it. And if not, you could pop it up through the lid like that. Or with that battery, you could put it through the back like this if you want to. Anyway, a couple options. It's a great upgrade in my opinion. These things are so super fun to ride now. They accelerate fast. They top out at a higher speed. The braking is exceptional with that electronic motor braking. Single motor scooter, we're getting the upper 30s, close to 40. That's phenomenal. There's a lot of dual motor scooters that have that same spec and running dual motors. Again, next video I'm going to do some riding on all three of these, showing you what they can do. And I think that's about it. If anyone's got any questions, drop me an email. I'll leave my email below. And that's about it. All right, guys, take care.